religious conviction. So that, right, exactly.
That's not the point they're trying to drive.
I understand.
Ma'am, I'd like to address one question that you had, back to your point. Again, I talked to some people that can probably help facilitate this, and that is, our state now has to take a good look at this and whether or not we want to start, the state wants to start issuing marriage certificates, right?
It's already happening.
Yeah, the state shouldn't be in that business, right? So there's some discussion about that, saying that this should be in the church. The house of worship are the ones that should be issuing this. Probate judges don't want to be forced to that. And that's the discussion, because you're saying, is there anything to do about that? That discussion is already starting on legislative.
Well, I think the license is that's a legal document. The church doesn't issue licenses.
I understand that.
right?
I understand. You asked it to be done. That's discussion. I'm not saying I favor it. I'm saying that discussion's already happened. I'm seeing the emails. So we're here just kind of educating you on what's going on behind the scenes.
Well, I got married when I was 22, and I'm still married. I don't know why she sticks up with me. I don't know. It's a lucky guy. But I remember being in love, and I remember being in church, and I remember going to my parents and talking to them about the proposal. I remember talking to her parents about the proposal, getting their blessing. And I remember standing in that church, and before I could even get there, understanding that my pastor, my church, my congregation, my family, her family, had all given us our blessing for our wedding. And I thought, that's all we need. And then we had to go to the government to ask for permission, and I had to pay them a fee for a piece of paper, and I had to ask them if I could get married. And I thought, that's just so weird that we are asking permission from the government to get married, but I don't think we should do that. And I've never thought we should do that. And I've been married now for going on 17 years.
You have to have the same one when you die.
Right, I mean, so I just thought, you know, I've always thought, I don't know why we ask
I mean, I think
the government to get involved.
I think many of you already know in the room, Scott and I are pretty much aligned, the less government, the better. I'll give you just a quick story. I was in D.C., I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I'm walking through the hall, right? Get off the plane, and you're walking through the hall, and I come up on a stool where I have a TSA agent sitting there, snoring away. And I just stopped. Of course, my wife, many of you know my wife, she's like, really? Come on, let's keep going. I said, no. I'm going to stand here. She's like, come on. I said, no. So I just stopped. And I had about 30 people gather around me pretty soon. And the guy's like, and he starts to fall out of his stool, and he looks up, and he just looks around. And I just went, really? So I walked over to the D.C. police officer, and I said, that's our TSA. That's the guy we're paying for to protect us, sound asleep. And he went, there's not much I can do. So we don't need more government. And Scott and I agree with that. Okay?
So are you opposed to the government or how it's being poorly executed?
Both.
I think there's certain things that the government shouldn't be in your life in certain issues, you know?
Well, that's not really a good example, I think, because that's protecting people, right? Or it's supposed to be. I mean,
Well,
you know,
okay,
we're not against that.
So I would submit to you this. We are no more safe today with TSA than we were before.
Well, you never really know, do you? Because you don't know what to prevent it.
Okay, so let me just tell you this, okay? The guy that was over the director of cyber terrorism at the Pentagon, I went to school with. So I spent a lot of time with him. He showed me.
Like college?
What's that?
You went to
High
college
school.
with him?
High school. You look at my problem with him. I was just back in Montana for a graduation. He shared a lot of the stuff that they see that go through. They just had a test in one of the airports. We had a 95% failure rate with TSA. Okay, I would much rather know we have a problem than have all of us in here getting on a plane with our children and our wives and our mothers feeling like we're safe, and it's false. When I was a tank commander, I'd much rather know I got somebody over the hill than have Scott sitting there saying, oh, there's nobody there, we're good. And I go over the hill and go, 95% chance I'm getting shot. The government is failing at these things.
Well, I don't think they're telling us safe. That's your argument. Nobody's telling us we're safe.
We can talk offline about that, but I would say they are. They're saying that you are safe to be able to travel.
No, there's a security mechanism between you and danger, and if it's not working, that's the issue, not whether it should be there or not.
We can banter this later, but, sir.
Can I ask a question regarding the Confederate flag issue that's just come out? Can the governor change the emblem on the tag without
Yes, he
the
can.
legislature's approval?
Yes, he can.
He just arbitrarily take it off or whatever?
It is not a legislatively established tag. It's a Department of Revenue established tag, and he can't
He
change
can
it.
remove it.
Yes, he can change it. It's up to him.
And the Supreme Court ruled last week, the state of Texas could prohibit that to be on tax.
Yes, they can. What else?
Other questions? Someone sent me an email, if you want to address the last bill of session, I know I'm going to probably take a little heat for this, but I want to explain it. It's called the Midnight Express Bill. This bill, underlying bill, HB 202, that I was asked to carry, that I worked on, was working for about 4 years. I can't take credit for all of the bill, but we worked on it. It's a property tax reform bill. So if you're a property tax owner, when you get your increase, in the past, when you went to the Board of Equalization and said that, hey, listen, I don't agree with this, it was a cumbersome process to be able to get that overturned. And if you didn't like what the Board of Equalization would come back with, then what would happen is you could appeal this to Superior Court. And in some cases, it's $200 to $250. The challenge with that, in my eyes, in some cases, you're not going to get the benefit of it. So taxpayers, property owners, it's just not worth the hassle. Okay? So there's a whole lot of provisions in this, and one of it was I capped it at $25. Or I didn't. The bill, I asked for it to be reduced. There's a whole bunch of other things. So it's a very good bill for property tax owners. The challenge is, most of you know, because I'm sure everybody in here is very astute how this whole process works down at the Capitol. The last day of session becomes a train where stuff gets piled on that can't get through. So before all of you get real angry, just please hear me, and then you can get angry afterwards, because some of you sent me emails and so on. HB 202 fundamentally was a great bill. It passed the Senate, it went over to the House, and it would have passed the House because it's already passed the House once before. The way the process works is when you want to send it to committee, not re-committee, so that you can put something else on, you've got to have a change. Okay? Otherwise you just agree with it. It was asked for a change to be made, not by either of us in either chamber, because the Mercedes-Benz bill needed to be passed. It needed a transport. It needed something to be attached to. Whether we like that process or not, we can debate that. The Mercedes-Benz bill, if you peel it away, is just simply this. And I'm not saying whether you agree with it or not, but I'm explaining. The Mercedes-Benz, the governor in economic development made a promise, or a commitment, we'll say, to Mercedes-Benz when they would move their headquarters down from New Jersey. They have roughly 1,000 employees, and they give them all Mercedes to drive as part of the package. And they rotate those cars out every 60 days. The commitment was made is you won't pay sales tax on those, you just pay tax. Okay? Whether that's right or wrong. Okay? That's what the bill did. You can look at it economically, you can look at its favoritism, you can do whatever. Dealerships do some of the same things when they process through it. So it is what it is. It got attached. On Thursday, or the day before I was to carry this bill, I knew that was going to be attached. Okay. 202 still a good bill. Then I was told, listen, when you change the TVAT, prior to me being in there, the whole birthday tax, when they stopped doing that annual tax, you know, the birthday, what happened was it basically defunded a couple of the counties down where MARTA's at. The whole unintended consequences of it. We pass laws and then, oh, well, this happened. So they needed that on there so they could make them pull. Okay. Then I had a piece that some in the room, maybe, thought that was a bit of cronyism. And I want to explain it to you. It's not. I serve on the board of Truett-McConnell. Truett-McConnell is a private school open in Mountains. Is it Baptist? Yes. Am I Baptist? Yes. So are a whole lot of other people around here. My kids don't go. Most of you know my kids are 14 and 10. They're not in my district, and I don't get paid to serve on that board. So I don't get anything out of it other than an opportunity to serve. Truett came to me and said, hey, there's a provision already in the law that we applied for a couple years ago, and it got denied. Can you help us work on that? The provision says that for educational purposes, educational institutions do not pay the sales tax. So I went to the Department of Revenue, went to Ledge Council, I said, hey, can you help me with this? Because they built some buildings back about 3 years ago, they thought they qualified, they didn't. They looked. I'm sorry?
They're not 501c3.
They are. But it's a specific, here. So we looked at it, and they said, well, here's why. The education does not apply to buildings. Okay. There's an intent for that? They said, could be, but it doesn't apply for, it only applies for materials. I said, okay, it is building materials. I said, no. Educational materials, not construction materials. Okay. How do we change that, or do we want to change it? And the agreement was, yeah, I mean, we would be okay with changing that. I said, all right, let me go to work and try to understand this process, because I'm not in that business. So I went to work. I went to the House, I went to the Senate, I went to the Ledge Council, I went to the Department of Revenue and Riley, and I said, help me with this so I can understand what's the fiscal impact, what's all of this. And they said, what will happen is they'll be able to come through, you'll need to be able to just make an amendment and apply it on, and we'll be able to do this. We did this in an open hearing, in a committee hearing. And at the last minute, we decided this is probably not the right way to do it. So there was lots of discussion. You'll pull the film, you can see it. And so how would you do this? I said, you're going to have to do it in another bill. Okay. So I got back to Ledge Council. I said, is there another provision in the law and the code that we want to do this? They're building again, and there's $350,000 tax credit they want. Not taxes they paid they get back. They just need to be able to finish these educational buildings. $350,000 credit. They just don't want to pay the tax on it. This one time. What's the heart of everyone? They said, you know what? Go talk to the institutions. Go talk to Georgia or KSU. Go talk to Georgia Tech. Go talk to other people, see what they are, because we'll be okay with it. So I went to Bud Peterson. I went to Dr. Papp. I said, hey, got a private university. They're up in the mountains. Truett-McConnell. Yeah. What do you think of this? And they said, we get it as public universities. You guys fund us out of the General Assembly, and we don't pay it. We would have no problem with this. Besides, we're full. Dr. Papp said, we're sending students to the private schools that would help us. Okay. That's how that Truett-McConnell that the media, I had 19 interviews, including the Seattle Times. Like it or not, that's what happened. It was open. It wasn't like I was trying to slide anything through. I didn't get a donation for it. I was asked, I vetted it out. I'll commit to you guys. I always look that stuff out. I don't have any reason to serve, nor does Scott, to personally benefit me. I don't. I've got businesses that way. Okay? So that was on me. But here's where the big problem came. And I know I'm spending some time on this, but it's good for you to understand this. Friday, or whatever the morning was, what was the last day's session? Thursday? Tuesday? Wednesday? Maybe it was Friday. I don't know. I got to the Capitol fully intending there was 4 pieces of legislation, and I had a bill that had 8. What about these other pieces of legislation? Well, those need to pass. Why do they need to pass? Well, because they need to pass because the governor wants to pass it. Okay, well, I'm not the smartest guy. Guess where I'm going? To the governor's office. So I went to the governor's office. And I pressed pretty hard and I said, I need absolutes, non-negotiables. I want to know these, what are absolutes and what are non-negotiables. And we started checking out. And we got back down the board. Then I went over to the House. And I said, what are your absolutes and non-negotiables? Well, those are the governor's. I said, really? Because I just came from the governor's office. Well, he supports, okay, great. He supports them or he doesn't, but the reality is we agreed to 4 yesterday. There's going to be 4 on this. So we went through this whole game, which takes several hours. Started at 9 in the morning. About 3 in the afternoon, we got a bill drafted that was back to where it was supposed to be. And I was getting ready to sign it because you need a certain number signing on it. And I thought, you know what? I need to look at this a little more carefully. I'm not an attorney. So I brought in Irene Munn, who is the chief, she was chief legal for our lieutenant governor. And we started going through this, and I'll be doggone if there wasn't something back in there. So we go back over to the House and go, hold on a second. We agreed to these 4 things. We go back to Ledge Council to get it done again. And they're already up there. There's another draft being done. Because see, here's how it works. Even though I was the chair of this conferee, anybody on this can go get their piece drafted, and nobody knows what anybody's doing. Not because we don't know, it's because of that whole protection. We get back to sign it again. They said, okay, where's is right, and so on, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, let's look at it again. Well, sure, they changed it. They just took the words out and buried it over here as a code. Heck bent, this is going to pass. So if you pull the film, you will see at 9 o'clock, me sprinting through the Capitol, and I apologize if the lady was in the room. I mowed over some poor lady that was in the way. And they helped her back up, and she was okay, and I'm sprinting down because this has to be on the desk of the Senate 2 hours before we passed a rule. Self-imposed. Before it was, I think you guys had an hour, right? 1 hour. We passed it 2 hours, saying, give us at least 2 hours to look at this legislation.
They didn't give us an hour to look at it.
Yeah, well, that's the whole part of life. So long and short of it was, I finally get it drafted. It's 10:02. We get it stamped. We get it on the floor. We don't have 2 hours. I was instructed, ask for permission to suspend the rules. I asked for permission, it failed by 1 vote. I was asked to come to the front, I was given the voter record, they said, go find a vote. Okay, I went and found a vote. Mr. President, with all due respect, I request unanimous decision to suspend the rules, having legislation on desk for bills. I'll vote again, I'll be doggone if they didn't change the vote, we're back the same, so it's really stupid. So leadership made a decision, we're voting in. And it passed. So again, I know a lot of stuff you see in the media, I'm not saying if you're in the media you're bad, but sometimes it's reported, it's not exactly what happened. Okay, 202 is a good bill. Some of this other stuff, how it happened, stinks. And we'll commit to, if we could change that process, we would. We would like to have 24 hours to look at legislation. But I don't make that decision, I'm the only one voting. Other questions? That's a big bill. It's a big bill. Yes, ma'am.
It's not about that, but
No, any question?
I believe that Common Core is detrimental to our education system. And is there any plan to produce something in the legislature to get rid of it?
There are a couple of people that are working on something of that nature. I can tell you that this year there wasn't a whole lot of traction. Last year, there was a bill that made it out of the Senate and into the House, and you get out of the House Education Committee. That's the status. And there are people that are working on it.
Can I jump on that real quick? Just from my experience having kids in Cherokee County school system, they spend several weeks a year prepping to score well on the state tests. That's several weeks that they're not learning anything. It's really, it's amazing to me, and I understand because we all choose where, well, a lot of us choose where we want to live because, based on the test scores, so we don't have to send our kids to private schools. So you want a school that tests well, and that bodes well, et cetera. But it seems to me, you know, I don't know that I'm for or against Common Core, but the fact that our school system spends weeks out of a already short year just to teach kids how to take the test is silly.
If I could address that, there's Common Core, which is a set of standards, and then there's our accountability model, which is how we measure performance for our schools. And those are two separate concepts. And they're tied together because our current accountability model relies upon what's called CCRPI, which uses Common Core as our standards. But all that can be adjusted and tweaked. I'm personally against how deeply ingrained standardized testing has become, and the CCRPI and the Georgia Milestones test this year for my third grader was insane. I have children in the public school system here in Cherokee County. They've been very well served, but I don't know, I think they said 2 students in my son's class didn't max out on the time allotted for the test. So this year was a hold harmless year, and we can talk with Mike McGowan from our school district over here about what we can do to continue to adjust and tweak and make it so that our teachers are empowered in the classroom and our kids aren't just studying for tests, but they're actually learning and learning how to think and adapt and overcome issues. I think that's what we need to get back to in education, starting with empowering teachers in the class.
I'd like to,
Back to the schools, where's the funding to lock some of these schools down? The elementary school I'm zoned for, the cafeteria comes first, then the front office. People in the front office can't even see someone walking in the front door. That cafeteria, someone could go in there and unload multiple rounds before anyone knows anything. Where's the funding to make these schools safer?
So funding for education comes in a couple of different ways. But if you're asking about how buildings are designed, that is a local control issue. But if you're asking about how schools are funded, it's a complex one.
Well, where's the funding to lock the schools down and make them safe?
Well, a lot of it is driven down to the locals to make their own decision. So I can tell you that I know that our local school district does a great deal of work in making sure that our students are safe. And I know we have a school district police force that makes that their mission every day. And I think every teacher that walks into the classrooms there makes that their mission every day. But if there is a specific issue, what I would recommend is that you come up afterwards and we can see what we can do to address them. Does that make sense? So I mean,
We're going to have an issue that's going to come up. I'd like to quickly go into the next session. I'm sure you're seeing this.
yeah, we've got 5 minutes.
So, horse racing, okay? It came down to whether or not we put it on the ballot for you or not. I'm just curious where you're at with it actually coming to you to vote to see if horse racing comes, because that's going to be a big media push, or they're already hammering me on this. So, show of hands, who's in favor of horse racing coming to Georgia? I'm just curious.
Can we ask why first?
Sure, you can ask why. I'm just asking. I want to have a
do it or not do
consensus.
it?
Why it's coming or why?
No, it's
Why
not.
would we-
Would you favor it coming to
If
Georgia?
it were on the ballot, let's put it this way, if it were on the ballot to legalize horse racing and pari-mutuel betting in Georgia, which is betting on horse racing, would you support that? Raise your hand.
What,
Yes, sir.
would that be supported by the government or again, open?
Private.
It's private. It's
Okay.
private.
Private.
Would there be stipulations on where they could locate them?
Yeah, what would you like?
Probably no governing, because it's going to go back to that zoning issue again.
They were trying to put it on Jekyll
No.
Island
Huh?
they've been trying to put a horse track on Jekyll Island for years. And it seems to me that'd be a pretty good spot to put
Yeah,
one.
no, I don't decide right now what the push is, whether you like it or not, is to be able to put it on,
Would you vote for it?
vote for it to come or not.
No.
We
Depends on where the
held up
money's
last year for
going.
you to be able to vote on.
Yeah,
It would be a
where's the money?
private.
Where's the money going?
Private.
It would be
Where was the money?
Private.
You tax it, you tax the revenue, but that would be it.
Right, so it would be a normal taxation, like if any other service or business you're person in Georgia, you know, there would be property tax value increase, there would be people who work at the track, there would be jobs that would be created. And
You take
the
a look.
that revenue, the tax revenue would go into the general fund.
Sir?
Yeah, but the lottery is nice because education gets that fund.
Well, we certainly augment.
So I'm not sure I got it. Are you in favor of it going on a ballot to vote for it?
No.
Those in favor?
No.
Those opposed? Just curious, okay?
One of the states, I think it's Florida, they had an article, how many of the horse tracks have actually shut down to the lack of participation of where the people were going, and they've had to turn it into other things. And I think
So
Texas is
I think
shutting
what's being debated what's being debated in the legislature is a bill that would allow you to vote on whether or not.
Is it currently banned or something?
Yeah, it's not allowed.
Gambling.
That's really out of everything that's going on. I'm worried about horse racing. There's not bills for other stuff.
So you can ban it.
My 2 cents is that I'm from New Orleans and I've seen what gambling does when you bring in and you start to put a pulse on that. If you let horse racing in, and next thing you know, they're going to want floating casinos and everything else. And I've seen the crime rates in New Orleans.
Here's what I would submit, here's what I would submit to you,
Area.
here's what I would submit to you. There's a high probability it's gonna come out of the General Assembly and put down to the residents to vote whether you want it or not. I would just educate yourself so you know what you're voting on, because I'm telling you, there's a big push for it to at least come to the citizens to vote. And so if you're surprised about this, it was only 2 votes short in the Senate for actually moving forward.
It hasn't gotten to the floor for a vote in the House at all. So it was required.
Are people, so it's currently banned in Georgia? Is it
Yes.
horse racing or is it gambling?
Gambling.
Pari-mutual betting is what that specific type of betting is called, gambling.
Which is offside.
Because nobody goes and watches a horse race or gambling, right? It just doesn't happen.
I've never been.
It's kind of hard to pay for the
Go to Steve,
horses
Jason.
without the gambling revenue.
That's why I said I didn't know. I don't know anything about horse racing.
Any other questions? Because I know we're getting short and we only have room for a period of time, and I'm going to stick around and answer those that want to talk to me or yell and scream at me or whatever you want to do.
Again, just so you guys know, these are our cell phones, so if you did want to have some personal conversation, feel free to call, and it'll be the one that brings you my
But I have a question. You guys actually answer those? 'Cause-
Oh, yeah.
Who in the room's called me?
Yeah.
Do I answer the phone?
Most of the time.
Okay. If I'm not in
Or you
session
call
or
back.
I'm not with my family and can't step away, I was on vacation in Montana for 7 days just recently where I grew up, and I had my cell phone. We had coverage to answer.
He was texting me back,
That was kind of broad. I grew up with a guy from Pearl Jam, so I don't listen to music, but I was.
name
broad.
dropper.
Since you pulled me out, can I say a thing or two?
Yeah, please, Mike.
On the Common Core question statement, I think there's a lot of confusion between what's the performance standard, what's the curriculum, what's being taught, and what's being tested. And I'd like to talk to whoever it was that asked that question and find out which Common Core standards it is that you don't agree with, because I bet we're not utilizing them. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what Common Core is and how it applies and what goes on in the classroom in Cherokee County as it relates to Common Core. So the gentleman who was talking about teaching to the test, for lack of a better way to put it, there's going to be a constitutional amendment on the ballot next year, driven by the governor, that puts all of your potatoes in one basket as it relates to what that CCRPI score is. And they're going to label your school a failing school or not based upon what that average is over a period of time, which is tied back to that test that we're referring to.
Well, Mike, if I could address, that's not technically correct. What you're going to be asked to vote on is whether or not the General Assembly should have the authority to establish an opportunity school district. That's it. That's what the constitutional amendment does.
That's true.
The
enabling
legislation, which is really a bad idea, doubles down on our current accountability model in a way that will marry us to standardized testing.
But the two are tied together.
Well,
there wouldn't be enabling legislation if the...
you can change the...
Right. It can be changed, but the two are tied together, correct?
Well, no, I don't think it would.
So, without the enabling legislation...
Without the enabling legislation, the General Assembly, if approved, the General Assembly would have the authority to create an OSD.
Okay, well, let me ask it the other way.
Sure.
Without the referendum, would there be...
No, there's not.
Then they're tied together.
Well, but in one direction, you're right.
Right, okay, so technically I'm right.
In one direction. No,
No.
What I said you were wrong about was saying you're going to vote on the enabling legislation, and you're not. What you're
No,
voting on.
I said you're going to vote on a constitutional amendment that is tied to...
The question that you'll be asked is, should the General Assembly have the authority to set up an OSD? I waffle back and forth on this, and I know that's a bad word to use, but here's the reality of it. Is I talked to our local school board folks, and they were obviously opposed, but it doesn't affect any school here in Cherokee County. Not one school in Cherokee County is going to be impacted by the potential to be taken over by the state.
I disagree with that. If the state can determine what failing is, the state can make the school look like it's failing.
So the enabling legislation set the standards for what the failing would be, and according to those standards, not one school in Cherokee County would be.
Today.
If I could just finish the sentence, I'd appreciate it, since we're almost done. So the reality is that not one school here in our system would be impacted by it, unless you count the fact that it's going to drive really bad behaviors in the accountability model, which needs to be fixed. It can be independently of the amendment. Now, let me just finish up real fast. Let me just get this out, okay? So the last part of that is that when I sat down with a superintendent from a school district, had lunch with, that has schools that do qualify, she was asking for it. She said to me, I'm at my wit's end with these particular areas and I don't know what to do. Now I have school systems that I have my own children in telling me it's a bad idea, but I have a school system from South Georgia telling me, please give us at least the opportunity to vote on whether or not we should establish this as a program.
Oh, can I finish? I know it's not my meeting, but there were two other things I wanted to
We
say.
need to
real
wrap
quick.
it up, and then some of these people want to.
Yeah, and we'll stay after.
Hold on,
We'll stay. We'll go out in the parking lot.
Go ahead.
I'm a future educator. I'm actually at KSU. I'm a veteran.
Thank you.
I've been all around the world, and I've seen the schools that other countries have that are so far ahead of us right now. We're behind. I admit it. Why can't we send a delegation, a state delegation, to these other countries to say, this is what you guys are doing, how are you doing it, and implement it here instead of taking a broken system as Common Core? I've seen the curriculum, and it's flawed. It's very flawed. You know, why can't we take something that Finland, Korea...
I'm going to address this, and then we're going to go out in the parking lot.
That's fine.
There are folks that do
right.
They go and travel in other places. There's members of our House Education Committee that do that for sure.
Right.
So that's a great. I think that's a great mindset to like us.
Right.
You know, all I can say is, as an educator, continue to let us know what you're seeing in classrooms. And I'm very interested in just reestablish some sort of empowerment to the teacher in the classroom. And that means getting out of your way so you can do the best job that you know how and address the if you're going to school to be educated, how to be an educator, you're gonna know way more than me, and so I'm gonna listen to you. All right, thank you all for being here, appreciate it, and give us a call if you need to discuss anything else.